What if you wanted to weigh the internet, not the cables or the data centers, but the actual data? If we turned every bit of information currently floating through the global network into physical matter, specifically grains of sand, how quickly would we bury the Earth? To weigh a YouTube cat video, we first need to weigh an electron. A bit is stored as a high or low voltage. According to physicist Russell Seitz, the total amount of active electrons that make up the internet's data sums up to about 50 grams. That's the weight of one large strawberry. But wait, storage is different. If we look at the magnetic orientation on hard drives or the trapped charges in flash memory, we aren't just moving electrons, we are organizing them. If information is physical, as Rolf Landauer suggested, then changing a bit requires energy, and E equals mc squared tells us energy has mass. However, at our current level of shouting into the void, the total mass of the actual logic of the internet is so small that a single sneeze would blow it off a scale. It's a very fragile strawberry, holding the weight of all human knowledge and way too many arguments about Star Wars. Let's abandon the electrons and embrace the 1 bit equals 1 grain rule. There are roughly 150 zettabytes of data in the world. A zettabyte is a 1 followed by 21 zeros. If each bit becomes a grain of fine sand, about 0.05 milligrams, we suddenly have a problem that civil engineers aren't paid enough to solve. We are talking about 1.5 trillion tons of silicon appearing out of thin air. For context, if you dump this in the middle of Kansas, it would create a mountain 10 kilometers high, taller than Mount Everest, but made of loose, shifting Wi-Fi signals. This data Everest would be so heavy it would depress the Earth's crust, causing localized earthquakes every time someone uploads a high-resolution photo of their brunch. The sheer friction of the grains rubbing together as the pile settles would generate enough heat to turn the base of the mountain into liquid glass, creating a glowing volcanic sea of Instagram stories. Now let's consider the flow. The internet isn't static, it moves. If your fiber optic cable started spitting out its capacity in physical sand, your home would become a death trap. A standard 1 gigabit per second connection would spray about 125 megabytes of sand per second. That is roughly 6 kilograms of sand every second hitting your living room wall. Watching a Netflix movie in 4K would bury you up to your waist in less than 10 minutes. By the end of a Lord of the Rings marathon, extended edition obviously, your house would suffer a structural failure under the weight of 50 tons of serialized data. You'd need a literal industrial conveyor belt just to keep your bedroom clear enough to finish the episode. Engineers would have to redesign routers to include high-velocity exhaust ports and data shoveling subroutines. Your ISP wouldn't charge you for overages in dollars. They'd charge you in excavation fees. As we look toward the future, the growth is exponential. If we continue to digitize every sneeze and doorbell camera movement, the internet sand pile will eventually reach a critical mass. Within a few decades, the density of the sand at the center of the pile would become so great that it would trigger a gravitational information collapse. The physics here gets weird. The pile would shrink, not because we deleted files, but because the atoms themselves are being crushed. We would reach the Bekenstein bound, the maximum amount of information that can be contained in a given region of space. At this point, the internet stops being a pile of sand and starts becoming a black hole, a sphere of pure, dense data from which no light or Wi-Fi can escape. The event horizon would be composed entirely of unread emails and terms of service agreements. If you fell in, spaghettification wouldn't just stretch your body, it would deconstruct your DNA into binary code, effectively turning you into a PDF file that nobody can open.
So, how heavy is the internet? In electrons, it's a strawberry. In sand, it's a planet killer. Every time you back up your work folder, which is actually just 200 gigabytes of memes, you are contributing to the eventual gravitational doom of the solar system. The next time your browser crashes, don't blame the RAM. Just imagine your poor CPU trying to shovel 50 tons of sand out of a tiny silicon straw while you impatiently click refresh. It's not a software bug, it's a weightlifting injury. Be kind to your devices. They are carrying the physical burden of our collective digital existence, and it's getting heavier every second.